If you have been planning to start an Etsy print-on-demand business for months, or if you're new to Etsy and you're not seeing the sales that you actually want, this video will outline the 7 most important things when it actually comes to selling on Etsy. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing, and one of the actually main variables to actually selling on Etsy, is the thumbnail. And that's basically all the mockups, and mainly the first one. So I've searched for sweatshirt here, and then I basically went into filters, and I applied a star seller filter, and then I changed star here to best. So this said star before, and now it says best. This is because this will only basically show me the best sellers for this given keyword. So all of these are actually best sellers now. When it comes to mockups, I have a very simple process. It does not require any type of tools or anything like that. But basically here, we want to see patterns. So if we basically see a mockup that's being used a lot, like a specific one, then that's the one that we want to use ourselves. Super simple, because usually with these mockups, you can usually find them on Etsy itself. So let's see if we can find some here. We're seeing overall like a lot of sand colored sweatshirts here. We want to be even more specific than that. So let's see here. Let's see if we can find some exact mockups that are really popular. Let's go to page 2. I mean, this is one of a really big keyword. Even though it says 1,000 results, I think this is basically just skewed because there's just a lot more than this. But I think they've just filtered it down a bit. This one we saw before. We saw this one before. We saw this one before too. This is a really similar one to this one. This one is basically also really similar. Okay, so let's see here. This one, as I mentioned before, I don't want to press the ad so it doesn't cost the person something. So okay, so you have one here, this one that says homebody, this one, and this is the same one, it's just the organic one. But let's see here. These two are the exact same mockup. Do you see that? So this one and this one is the exact same, just with different designs on them. We saw some here as well. Like this whole thing with this whole type of mockup is super popular overall. Okay, so now we basically have 2 type of designs. Both are bestsellers and have sold really well, it seems, and with the same mockup. Then you have these. These are basically almost the exact same. And overall, this type of mockup style is super popular, like with this one. I mean, you can usually find these mockups on Etsy itself. And I know for a fact that these are Gildan 18,000s just by the look of them. You can see that from the Gildan Heavy Blend. But these basically are Gildan 18,000s. So we'll just search for Gildan 18,000 mockup. And now let's see here. Here we have a really similar one. And there's the exact one. Like we want to buy this exact mockup, and this one is right here. So now we have one of them set. You can probably find the other ones too here. Let's see if I do. Let's type instead here sand mockup to be even more specific so we can find it faster. We want to find this one. I mean, there are really similar ones, but we want to be so specific that we want to know that it's exactly that one, because it's always the details and the small things, like the small differences, that actually make a difference. So that's why it's good to have the exact same mockup, because then we know that it's that one that sells really well, like for sure. Okay, I can't actually find, it's probably somewhere around here, I'm not sure. But if we can't find the exact mockup, these ones, then we can find something really similar. And we already found that previously. Let's see here. This one is super similar. So if we can't actually find the one, then finding one that is as similar as possible, or going back to the drawing board and finding like other mockups that, like apart from the ones that I showed you, and finding several bestsellers with it that are using the same mockups, getting those ones instead, like getting other ones than the ones that you couldn't find on Etsy. That's the whole process from finding mockups that actually work, like in a nutshell. Seeing common denominators within bestsellers, like if you find 5 listings that are using the exact same mockup and all of them are bestsellers and selling super well, like get that same mockup yourself, as long as you can find it on Etsy, so you can purchase it basically. The second most important thing to actually selling on Etsy, and that's using a break-even pricing strategy and a profit pricing strategy. What I mean by this is that when we list our items, we should list them at a lower cost. And this is because pricing is usually the lever that we can pull the most to actually garner sales initially, the easiest. So if we list it at a smaller price, then it usually garners sales faster. What I mean by when I say break-even pricing is not literally break-even pricing, but almost. So if you go into Allura here, we want to basically have a $2 to $4 margin to actually cover any like issues or costs or anything with our business. If we sell, for instance, a sweatshirt for $28 and it costs, I think it costs $22.4 with Monster Digital now, then we earn a $2.5 profit margin. So that's a bit too low. Let's say $29. And $29 is the perfect margin. We want to have $2 to $4 margin to cover any issues or any like ad costs or stuff like that with our tests. Because I found when I actually did it at break even exactly, I'm going too much into the red and it's too much risk. So having some margin when doing our break even pricing strategy is my go-to way to actually make it work. So you basically list it at a point where you only earn $2 to $4 margin when you list it. Now, when it's garnered 10 to 15 sales, or it's garnered a 50% visibility score on Everbee. Okay, so what I mean by a visibility score here is this one, the average visibility score. This one should say at least 50%, or the listing itself should have at least 10 to 15 sales, because I don't know really what they based it out of, but I know that if I just put up my listing to profit pricing, and I'll get into what that exactly means in a sec, but if it has a 50% visibility score and then I put it up, then it still like ranks and gets sales. Before that, it does not rank as fast as needed. However, I've noticed that sometimes it's sold like 15 times and it still has like a 30% visibility score. So I think the amount of like searches a keyword or a niche gets highly affects this visibility score as well. If it's garnered either 10 to 15 sales or a 50% visibility score here, that's when I turn it off to profit pricing. And when I say profit pricing, we go back to the Allura Etsy calculator here. What I basically do Etsy for is it's as a business. If you've defined Etsy and this whole thing as a creative endeavor that you want to creatively express yourself with, then that's fine. But for me, it's all about making some margins and making it as a business. So I want to see a tangible profit here. I always want to earn a 30 to 40% margin, which usually means around a $10 to $15 profit. It can usually be a little bit lower than 10, but usually it's a $10 to $15 profit margin. When it's garnered 10 to 15 sales, I would bump the price up to basically 30, let's see here, until this part here says 30 to 40%. So maybe like $38 instead. $38 or $39 maybe even. Maybe like $38 to see if that works. If you're new to Etsy, then you can see if 38 works, and then if it works well, you can still up the price to maybe $39 to find a sweet spot. But $38 would be perfect. After it's gone into my initial rank, I would bump it up to profit pricing, so I have the margins that I actually want with the product, because it's really important to be profitable with Etsy. And that leads me to the third thing, which is shipping and processing times. Now, this is really easily overlooked. I've done this myself, but having accurate shipping and processing times is super important to actually get sales. I mean, if something arrives in 4 weeks, for me, that is a really big offset personally to actually buying something. Like, you want it as fast as possible. Making sure that like you have accurate shipping times and processing times is super important. And the easiest way to do that, if you have some sales, like take the average of the sales that you have, like, and see when they did order it and when they did get delivered. Take the average of that, of like 30 sales if you have that, and then take the average and implement those. If you don't have that, then basically just use what Printify shows you, how long it actually takes. But usually that's a bit longer than it usually takes for some of the print providers to actually fulfill items. So use that initially, but once you have some sales, then just shorten it to what you're actually providing them with. Those settings are super important, and you can do this within the shipping profiles on Etsy. Now, the fifth thing that's super important to actually get sales on Etsy, and that's guarantees. Especially if you don't have much sales within your shop. So a guarantee is basically something that offsets risk for customers and puts it back on us, the sellers. It could be something that just says something like, if anything happens to the item, or if you're unhappy for any reason, just contact us and we'll be happy to send you either a replacement or a refund. But that basically just offsets risk for the customer, because if you don't have much reviews, there's a lot of risk for someone to actually purchase from your store. The good thing here is that we're under the Etsy umbrella. So when someone buys off of you, I've always heard it as someone bought this off of Etsy. It's still like an easier barrier to actually enter since you're on Etsy. Overall, just having a guarantee that just states that if they're unhappy for any reason, they can just contact you and either get a refund or replacement. That is usually something that offsets risk for a customer if you're new to this. but it also raises conversion rate if you're a more advanced or like intermediate seller on Etsy. And the sixth thing, which it naturally leads into now, is the reviews. Reviews are super important, and in the beginning what I did to actually garner reviews is that when I actually sold something, I really wanted to make sure that the customer had an outstanding experience. So I made sure to, when I basically ship the item, I contact them and just say, thank you so much for your order. Here's like the tracking information. If there's any problems or so, they can always just contact us and we'd be happy to help. That message usually is super good, because if you just include the tracking information and just have like a link within it, it's easy for them to know that, okay, it's been shipped out and I can just press this link right here to actually track it. And then here's the most important part, in my opinion, that actually garnered reviews. If you do this first part and you don't get anything back, and then you message them again once it's been delivered, and then I basically just ask if everything is good with the order. If everything was good with the order, I usually ask them if they could leave a review. That almost always led to positive reviews. Some people just disregard the message and move on with their lives. Like, the amount of reviews you actually get from that is huge. Making sure to just contact them at the beginning, like when something has been shipped. Like if you're making like 20 orders a day and you want to make more orders a day, or you're making 10 orders a day, then it's not that many orders to just contact. I just always took the morning, contacted everyone. You can just go to Etsy and see if you have like 10 orders and you see that there are 10 new complete orders, like in the completed tab, then you can just go to those, message those until you see like that you've sent a message to a customer, because then you basically have completed all the new customers that hasn't received your ship message. And then you can just click filter by delivered. And once something has been delivered, you can just basically just do the same thing. Message everyone with a simple message that just says, is everything okay with the order? Was everything good with the item that you received? Once you've done all of the new ones, and you enter an order where you see that you have actually messaged them already, then you're done. And since there are not many orders in the beginning, it's usually something that goes quite fast, in my opinion. So that's something that really helps with garnering reviews, especially in the beginning. But reviews is one of the absolute main variables to actually, for someone to actually feel safe to buy from your store. If they see a lot of reviews and they're all positive, then that would definitely lead them to buy from your shop. That's been my experience, and personally, that's how I like do when I purchase stuff off Amazon or something like that. That's how I do. I scroll through the reviews, and if there's no reviews, I usually don't buy it. If there's some reviews that are negative and overwhelmingly then I definitely feel more secure with buying the item. But before we go into the most important thing when it comes to Etsy, if you found some value in this video, please hit that like button and subscribe, and hit that bell notification as well if you can, as that lets YouTube know that you actually like the content that you watched. And it also helps to spread it on YouTube as well. In return for doing this, I'll make sure to give you the best Etsy content as I possibly can do. Now, let's get back to it. And the final thing, that's in my opinion the most important thing, and why even someone would click like your listing in search, is the design. Having a design is, in my experience, it was the bottleneck for me, but like testing out many different designs until you actually find one that actually works is the way to go about Etsy. Now, with the recent changes that Etsy just had, at least there are gray areas within this. I'm not sure what they actually mean. I'll be hesitant to put up like your text here listings, as they explicitly say that they don't want that. I'll make a design video about this in the future, an updated one, to make sure to cover this entirely for you guys. But what I would basically do is I would basically take the steps that I took and do my niche research properly, as I showcased in this video right here. And then I'd basically apply different types of designs within like the top niches and see which one actually works to find out which design is selling the best. So that's what I would do in a nutshell. So I would follow the niche research steps that I took with the master list, and then just trying out like broad strokes, not trying out every single one, but trying out different niches within the master list. And then I'll basically try out different types of designs, like a couple different designs for every single niche. Since we know that the niche itself is super popular and it does sell, the main thing to do now, when you know this, is to try out different designs to see which exact design is actually selling well. And that's by combining different elements into something new and putting that within like top selling niches. But I try out different like entirely different designs that you think would actually work within specific niches. But the most important part about this is that when you actually find something that works, like a niche and a design match that actually works. Let's say that you found a design that works super well for nurses, like a specific nurse. Then I'll basically spread that design out to every single sub niche within all the nurses. Or let's say that, for instance, you have a sports design that sells super well, like a sports type design that sells super well within some sports. Let's say that you have a basketball design. Then I basically spread that basketball design and try to make a football version of it, try to make a baseball version of it, any type of sports related thing. where your design would fit. So when something actually works, like really double down on it and focus only on that. Like this has been my experience, but as you have double down on it and you just focus on the things that actually work, then you can test out new designs here and there just to see if you can catch another like really best-selling design. But once you have something that works in a specific niche, focus all your efforts on that and just scale as much as possible. And what I mean by that, as I said, is like doing every sub niche within the big niche. So if it's a sports type of niche like basketball, try out football, try out baseball, any sports. But apart from that, don't just do this specific design within these niches. Like try out, for instance, like to flip the design a bit around. If you have like, for instance, like some shirt that maybe says, as long as something is not trademarked or copyrighted, then go for it. Just out of my imagination, if it says basketball up here, and then there's like a basketball here, maybe have like, for instance, the ball here and then basketball here, or have some kind of other saying for like, instead of just having like it's saying basketball and then a basketball like image element here, have it, for instance, be like another type of basketball saying here up instead, and then the basketball, because then you have another type of design. Like you have the same fonts, you have the same basketball element, like the image of the basketball. Instead of it saying basketball here, let's like have some kind of funny saying within basketball up here and then the exact basketball underneath that. That's another great way to just double down on a single niche and to just drag out as much as you can of the specific niche that you're in that is actually working. All right, so if you want to learn more about print on demand and Etsy, I suggest watching this video right here. And if there's anything that you want to see next, just drop a comment down below and I'll do my best to help out. I'll see you in the next one.